What do you guys think will be the next official release in the Fire Emblem franchise? And no, I'm not talking about the next Fire Emblem spin-off or mobile game or whatever weird thing they decide to do with it. What do you guys think will be Fire Emblem 16? Since we recently had Echoes being released just a few months ago, I wager we probably won't get the announcement until at least another 6 months down the line, but that still doesn't stop me from making this little video where I talk about what I personally think and wish Fire Emblem 16 will be like. So, I think the first thing we all need to ask ourselves is, after Shadows of Valencia, will we get another Fire Emblem remake? Well, Nintendo has actually directly said that they wish to do more Echoes content in the future, and that we might see titles such as Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Druggedral down the line. So I don't think it's a question of if we will see another Fire Emblem remake, but rather when we will see it. Personally, I think Echoes was a bit of an experiment from Intelligent Systems to see how well the community would welcome another remake, and while Shadows of Valencia didn't sell quite as well as Awakening or Fates, they still apparently sold out most of their games in stock, and Echoes became the best-selling game in Japan the week it came out. Sure, if you compare it directly to the two previous installments, it looks bleak, but standing on its own 2 feet in the video game world, you cannot say that Echoes was a flop. Now, I'm going to make another video in the future where I talk more about Echoes, as soon as I finish the goddamn Let's Play, but for now, suffice to say that I think Echoes did well enough that we can expect to see another remake coming eventually. The big question is, will Fire Emblem 16 be another remake? Well, I don't think so. As exciting as a remake would be, I don't think releasing 2 of them in a row would be very good for the franchise as a whole. Remaking old stuff is fun, but we also need originality and new ideas. I wager that Fire Emblem 16 will be a new game with a new story, but that it will have ties to Awakening or Fates. While I do not personally enjoy the story or worlds of either of those two all that much, another game expanding either of them in any direction would be very nice to see, and I think it would be a big hit with the fandom considering how enormously popular they both were. Most Fire Emblem worlds have 2 or more installments representing them. Druggedral had Fire Emblem 4 and Fire Emblem 5, Alib had Fire Emblem 6 and Fire Emblem 7, and Tellius had Fire Emblem 9 and Fire Emblem 10, so it would be completely unusual for them to do this. Now, the reason I think an Awakening or Fate sequel would be very successful is because of the children characters of those games and how extremely popular they are in the community. There's a lot you can do with them as the next main characters of the upcoming game, and if you then include children characters for them, you could have a story that spans 3 generations, which would be pretty cool to see, as long as they don't include more of the stupid time travel or time-space mumbo-jumbo, that is. But what if the next game is another remake? What game will they remake first? Well, I have 2 picks, one that I would like to see and one that I think Intelligent Systems would like to do. For me personally, I would love to see Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Druggedral, a remake of Genealogy of the Holy War. I think that the story of Fire Emblem 4 is one of the best told ones in the franchise. The characters are great, and seeing them remade with new designs and features such as support conversations would be absolutely terrific. The story also spans across 2 generations, with marriage and children being a very central part of the game, and we know that this is super popular from Awakening and Fates. If they wanted to, they could even throw in Generation 1.5 and include Leaf's story and Thracia, having 3 stories playing out one after the other, with your choices affecting them all. Just imagine bringing some of Thracia 776's cast into the 2nd generation of Fire Emblem 4. Hell, Nintendo could even sell them as 3 different games like they did with Fates. That sounds like license to print money, if you ask me. While Fire Emblem 4's story may be seen as a bit too adult for some people, with incest, death cults, and child hunts going on, Intelligent Systems could very well tone down these aspects of the game without having to ruin the overall story. If they could take a simple story from Gaiden and turn it into the amazing narrative of Echoes, imagine what they could do with Genealogy of the Holy War, which has some of the most shocking plot twists ever to be seen in a Fire Emblem game. I personally would love to see how newer players react to the end of the 1st generation, and admit it, you'd love to see that in the form of a remastered cinematic as well. However, as amazing as Shadows of Druggedral sounds, I do not think this will be the next remake in the series. Oh no, what I think Intelligent Systems will go for next is a remake of Fire Emblem 6, Binding Blade. Why? Because for some weird reason, Roy is one of the most popular Fire Emblem lords in the franchise. I don't know why, if it's because of Smash or some other weird reason, but everyone just seems to love the guy. In fact, Binding Blade's cast is really popular in the community overall. Just look how many of them popped up early on in Fire Emblem Heroes. It's also a story from Elib, a world the West is already familiar with, unlike Drugjal, as Fire Emblem 7 was released in the West, and I think that for a lot of veterans, it was the first game they played. Having the Roy story localized and remade for the West would be a huge hit with the Fire Emblem community, and I think this is the most logical path for intelligent systems to take. Additionally, there's this interview with the director of Shadows of Valencia, where he is asked what game he would like to see remade next, and wouldn't you know, he wants to do Binding Blade the most. Now, of course, just because someone wants something to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I definitely think that this aids the prospects of a future Binding Blade remake quite a bit. So, to make a brief summary of my predictions for Fire Emblem 16, I believe that the next installment in the franchise will not be another remake, but a sequel, or even prequel, to either Awakening or Fates. However, I do think that Fire Emblem 17 has a very strong chance of being another remake, and I do believe that this will be a localized, remastered version of Fire Emblem 6, even though I personally would want to see Fire Emblem 4 the most. One thing still needs to be talked about, however, and that is the console Fire Emblem 16 will be released on. Fire Emblem Warriors will be out for the Switch, and according to Nintendo, so will Fire Emblem 16. Now, this initially worries me a lot, since Fire Emblem has never had a good history transitioning from handheld to home console. Fire Emblem is typically not a game best played from the couch, but rather in your hands. Just look at the success of Heroes. However, the Switch is a weird hybrid that can be both things, so this might still work out after all, though I'm personally a bit bummed out, because I feel like Fire Emblem usually does best on smaller handheld consoles. However, the 3DS is nearing the end of its popular lifespan, and releasing Fire Emblem 16 on it would probably not be a very good idea, as past installments have shown us that the older the console gets, the worse the sales drop. So maybe this is a good thing after all. Whatever they decide to do with Fire Emblem 16, whether it be another remake or a new game altogether, I personally can't wait to see what's next for the Fire Emblem franchise. What do you think will be the next installment in the series? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more Fire Emblem content. I also have a Patreon if you want to support my content further. Until next time, my name has been Mangs, and I shall see you guys soon. Goodbye.